The Davis estate loomed in the golden dusk, its manicured lawns and towering gates, both a symbol of its immense wealth and the fortress-like control it exerted over those within. Inside the grand mansion, the scent of roses lingered, a cruel contrast to the suffocating tension brewing behind the doors of the study. Chloe Davis stood at the threshold, her long auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, defiance flashing in her green eyes. She had been summoned, not asked, and the sharp knock of her heels against the polished wood floor betrayed the anger simmering beneath her calm exterior. Victoria Davis, her stepmother, sat poised behind a massive oak desk. At 50, Victoria's elegance was a weapon, her every move calculated to project authority. She gestured toward the leather chair across from her. "Sit," Victoria commanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I'll stand," Chloe replied, her voice steady, though her heart raced. She crossed her arms, bracing herself for whatever power play Victoria had planned. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line, but she continued as if Chloe's defiance was a minor inconvenience. "As you know, your father's passing left many matters unresolved. It's time we address them." Chloe's brows furrowed. "What exactly does that mean?" Victoria slid a sleek envelope across the desk. Chloe hesitated before picking it up, her fingers brushing the heavy paper. Inside was a legal document, the weight of its contents hitting her like a punch to the gut. "To access your trust fund," Victoria said, her voice as cold as the air-conditioned room, "you must marry within the year." Chloe's laugh was sharp, almost a bark. "You're joking." "I assure you I'm not," Victoria replied smoothly. "Your father believed in ensuring the Davis legacy remained strong. He entrusted me to guide you, and this is my decision." Chloe clenched her fists, her mind racing. "Guide me or control me? You've crossed a line, Victoria." Victoria's icy demeanor didn't falter. "This isn't about control, Chloe. It's about securing your future." "And you've already picked someone, haven't you?" Chloe spat, her voice dripping with venom. Liam Carter," Victoria said, her faint smirk revealing the satisfaction she took in delivering the blow. "A farmer." Chloe blinked, stunned into silence. "A farmer? Are you insane?" "Hardly. Liam is hardworking, disciplined, and exactly the influence you need. Your frivolous lifestyle ends now." "I won't do it," Chloe said, her voice rising. "You can't force me into some twisted fairy tale." Victoria leaned forward, her gaze hardening. "If you refuse, the estate defaults to me. You'll have nothing." The words hung in the air like a guillotine. Chloe's defiance faltered, her mind spinning with the implications. No money, no home, no legacy. But Victoria wasn't done. "Oh, and one more thing," she added, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "Your adoption papers? They might raise some interesting questions about your place in this family." The ground seemed to shift beneath Chloe's feet. Adoption? Her breath hitched, and for a moment, the world narrowed to Victoria's piercing gaze. "What are you talking about?" Chloe demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. Victoria smiled, cold and triumphant. "Something to think about, dear. You have 1 month to prepare for your wedding." Dismissed. Chloe stormed out of the study, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floors. When she reached her bedroom, she slammed the door behind her, tears stinging her eyes. She threw herself onto her bed, the weight of the ultimatum crashing over her. But even in her despair, a spark of defiance flared. If Victoria thought she could control her, she was sorely mistaken. Late that night, unable to sleep, Chloe found herself drawn to her late father's study. The room was dark, the faint scent of cigar smoke still lingering in the air. Her fingers traced the edge of the oak desk, until they found a locked drawer. Something about it called to her, a secret begging to be uncovered. For the first time in her life, Chloe felt that the truth about her father, her inheritance, and herself was more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Chloe's designer luggage clattered loudly against the uneven dirt road as she stepped out of the car, heels sinking into the soft earth. The Carter farm stretched before her, a patchwork of golden fields and weathered structures that seemed worlds away from the pristine elegance of the Davis estate. The sprawling countryside rolled into the horizon, dotted with barns and silos under a sky so wide and blue it felt almost suffocating. She let out an audible groan, brushing a loose strand of auburn hair from her face. Her tailored blazer and silk blouse felt absurdly out of place here, a glaring contrast to the rugged, unpolished world around her. She turned to face Liam Carter, her supposed fiancé, standing a few feet away, with his arms crossed. Liam was tall and broad-shouldered, his sun-kissed skin and calloused hands hinting at years of labor under the relentless Nebraska sun. His piercing blue eyes, however, held no warmth as they scanned Chloe, his expression unreadable. "Welcome to Meadowbrook," Liam said, his voice steady but devoid of enthusiasm. "This is home." Chloe's green eyes swept over the modest farmhouse and the faded red barn in the distance. "Home?" she muttered under her breath. "It's a prison sentence." Liam raised an eyebrow, the faintest hint of a smirk, tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Guess you'd better make yourself comfortable." The farmhouse, while modest, had an undeniable charm. The wooden floors creaked under Chloe's heels as Liam led her inside. The air smelled faintly of wood smoke and earth, and the furniture, though worn, was sturdy and well kept. A vase of wildflowers sat on the kitchen table, a touch of warmth in an otherwise utilitarian space. "This is your room," Liam said, gesturing toward a narrow staircase. "It's not the Davis estate, but it'll do." Chloe stepped into the small bedroom, her gaze sweeping over the twin bed with its patchwork quilt, the wooden dresser, and the window overlooking the fields. She set her luggage down with a sigh, already regretting every decision that had brought her here. "Anything else, or is the tour over?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Liam shrugged. "Suit yourself. Breakfast is at 6. Don't expect room service." Before Chloe could muster a retort, Liam turned and walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts and her simmering resentment. The next morning, Chloe found herself in the kitchen, drawn reluctantly by the smell of bacon and eggs. She sat at the small wooden table, her designer jeans and blouse an awkward contrast to the rustic surroundings. Liam placed a plate of food in front of her without a word. She took a bite, immediately grimacing at the black coffee he set beside her. "Is this motor oil?" she asked, setting the mug down. "Farm life doesn't come with lattes," Liam replied, amused. After breakfast, Liam handed her a pair of gloves. "You're helping with chores today." Chloe blinked. "Excuse me? You're part of this now. Everyone pulls their weight." Reluctantly, Chloe followed him outside. Her first task was collecting eggs from the henhouse, a seemingly simple chore that turned into a battle of wills between her and the chickens. One particularly feisty hen pecked at her hand, making her yelp and drop the basket. Liam leaned against the barn door, arms crossed, a grin spreading across his face. "You're a natural." "Shut up," Chloe muttered, rubbing her hand. Next came feeding the cows, which ended with Chloe tripping over a bale of hay and landing in the dirt. By midday, her once pristine outfit was streaked with mud and sweat, her patience hanging by a thread. The day wasn't entirely devoid of kindness. Later, Chloe met Martha Jenkins, the Carters' elderly neighbor. With her sharp tongue and warm heart, Martha immediately took a liking to Chloe. "You've got spirit," Martha said, handing her a glass of iced tea. "City girl like you might just survive out here." Ethan Carter, Liam's younger brother, was less welcoming. With his easy smile and sharp wit, Ethan wasted no time questioning Chloe's intentions. "Don't think for a second you can waltz in here and fix everything with your daddy's money," Ethan said one evening over dinner. Chloe shot him a glare. "Don't think for a second you can judge me without knowing me." The tension between them added another layer of complexity to an already fraught situation. Ethan's distrust mirrored Chloe's doubts about herself, forcing her to confront the idea that perhaps she wasn't as prepared for this life as she wanted to believe. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of work, Chloe found herself on the porch, watching the sunset paint the fields in hues of orange and pink. Liam joined her, sitting a few feet away in silence. "Rough day?" he asked after a while. Chloe glanced at him, surprised by the softness in his tone. "You could say that." "You'll get the hang of it," Liam said, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Takes time." Chloe hesitated, then asked, "Why did you agree to this? To marry me?" Liam's jaw tightened. "My family's farm is on the brink. Victoria made an offer I couldn't refuse." "That's it?" Chloe pressed. "That's it," Liam replied, his tone final. For a moment neither spoke, the weight of their shared predicament settling over them. It was the first time Chloe saw Liam not as an adversary, but as a fellow prisoner in Victoria's game. Late that night, unable to sleep, Chloe wandered into the kitchen. She found Ethan there, leaning against the counter with a bottle of beer in hand. "You don't belong here," Ethan said bluntly. Chloe folded her arms. "And you think you do?" Ethan chuckled, taking a swig. "Fair enough. But you should know, Liam didn't agree to this just for the farm. He's trying to save everyone, including you." Chloe frowned. "What do you mean?" Ethan hesitated, then shrugged. "Figure it out yourself. You'll see soon enough." As Ethan left, Chloe's mind raced. For all her resistance, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Liam and this arrangement than anyone was willing to admit. The morning sun rose over Meadowbrook, bathing the Carter farm in soft golden light. The peaceful hum of rural life, a rooster crowing in the distance, the rhythmic chirping of crickets, stood in stark contrast to the restlessness that consumed Chloe Davis. The city girl, now an unwilling farmer's fiancée, found herself wrestling with the stark reality of her situation. Her silk robe was traded for a pair of borrowed flannel shirts and jeans, still slightly too big for her slim frame. She tied her auburn hair into a messy ponytail, staring at her reflection in the antique mirror. Her green eyes lacked their usual fire, now tinged with uncertainty. "All right, Chloe," she muttered under her breath. "If you're stuck here, you might as well try." Determined to prove she wasn't entirely useless, Chloe volunteered to help Liam with the morning chores. However, her enthusiasm far outweighed her capabilities. Her first task, weeding a small vegetable patch. The process seemed simple enough, but Chloe's manicured nails weren't built for digging through stubborn roots. Within minutes, her hands were filthy, and her frustration mounted. Liam observed from a distance, leaning against the barn with his arms crossed. "You're pulling the plants, not the weeds," he called out. Chloe scowled, brushing hair out of her dirt-smeared face. "They all look the same." With a resigned sigh, Liam walked over. He crouched beside her, his large, calloused hands expertly distinguishing the weeds from the crops. "These are weeds," he said, placing a clump of scraggly greens in her hand. "These are what we're keeping." He plucked a tender sprout, its roots dangling like delicate threads. Chloe mimicked his movements, her face set with determination. After a few tries, and much teasing from Liam, she began to find a rhythm. "You're not entirely hopeless," Liam remarked, as he stood, brushing dirt off his jeans. The faintest smirk played on his lips. "High praise coming from you," Chloe shot back, though a small smile tugged at her lips. Later that day, Chloe wandered through the barn, marveling at its old-world charm. She trailed her fingers along the rough wooden beams, her heels echoing faintly against the floor. Stacks of hay filled the corners, and sunlight filtered through cracks in the walls, creating golden shafts of light. "Careful," Liam warned, startling her as he entered with a bucket of feed. "You'll scare the cows." Chloe turned, feigning indignation. "Do you think I scare everything?" Liam chuckled. "Not everything, just most things." Her retort was cut short by the sudden lowing of a cow. Liam handed her the bucket. "Time to feed them. Just dump it in the trough." Chloe hesitated, but stepped forward, her nerves evident. As she approached, one cow nosed the bucket, startling her into spilling half the feed onto the ground. "Graceful," Liam teased, trying and failing to suppress a laugh. Chloe shot him a glare, but found herself laughing despite her embarrassment. For the first time, she felt a flicker of camaraderie between them. As the days passed, Chloe began to notice subtle cracks in Liam's confident demeanor. Bills piled up on the kitchen table, and his phone buzzed constantly with calls he ignored. One evening, she ventured to ask about it. "Are we in trouble?" she asked cautiously, gesturing toward the unopened letters. Liam hesitated, his jaw tightening. "The farm's struggling," he admitted. "The drought last year hit us hard. The bank's breathing down our necks." Chloe's heart sank. For all her disdain for this place, she found herself caring about its survival. She glanced at the papers, her mind whirring. Her background in finance suddenly felt like a lifeline. "Let me help," she offered. Liam raised an eyebrow. "You? Help?" "I may not know farm work," she said, crossing her arms, "but I know numbers. Let me take a look." Reluctantly, Liam handed her the stack of bills. Hours later, Chloe sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open beside the documents. She combed through every expense and revenue stream, her city-bred skills clicking into place. Chloe's efforts didn't go unnoticed. Liam began to see her in a new light, less of a burden and more of an unexpected ally. Their late-night conversations grew more frequent, and their banter softened into something resembling friendship. One night, as they stood on the porch, Chloe gazed at the stars dotting the inky sky. "I've never seen anything like this," she murmured. Liam followed her gaze. "City lights block it out." "It's beautiful," she said, her voice quieter now. "I guess I can see why you stayed." Liam glanced at her, a rare softness in his expression. "It's home." While Chloe and Liam's relationship improved, external threats loomed. Jacob Owens, a neighboring farmer, visited the Carter farm under the guise of neighborly concern. "You know," Jacob began, leaning against his truck, "if you ever need to sell, I'd make you a fair offer." Liam stiffened. "Not interested, Jacob." "Suit yourself," Jacob said, his smile too wide. "But don't wait too long. Banks aren't known for their patience." Chloe overheard the exchange and later confronted Liam about it. "What was that about?" "Jacob's been circling like a vulture ever since the drought," Liam explained. "He wants the land, but I'm not giving it up." Chloe nodded, admiration stirring within her. She resolved to help him fight for the farm, no matter how hard it might be. One evening, Chloe found herself wandering the fields, the golden stalks of wheat swaying in the breeze. She stumbled upon a small wooden bench overlooking a pond, its surface glinting in the fading light. Liam appeared moments later, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "Thought you might want company." They sat in silence for a while, the tension between them easing into a quiet understanding. "Why do you care so much about this farm?" Chloe finally asked. Liam's gaze didn't waver from the horizon. "It's been in my family for generations. My parents built this with their bare hands. It's not just land, it's legacy." Chloe studied him, her heart softening. For the first time, she saw beyond his stoic exterior. A man fighting not just for survival, but for something far greater. As Chloe returned to the farmhouse that night, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Her name was scrawled across it, in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Victoria has been lying to you. The truth about your father is in his study. Check the locked drawer." Chloe's hands trembled as she read the note. Her heart raced as questions swirled in her mind. Who sent the letter? What secrets had Victoria kept hidden? Determined to find answers, she slipped the letter into her pocket and resolved to confront her stepmother once and for all. The moon hung high above the Carter farm, its silvery light casting long shadows over the fields. Inside the farmhouse, Chloe sat at the kitchen table, staring at the enigmatic letter that had been slipped under her door. The words on the page echoed in her mind. "Victoria has been lying to you. The truth about your father is in his study. Check the locked drawer." Her fingers traced the edges of the paper as she wrestled with the implications. Who had sent it? And what exactly would she uncover? As much as she wanted answers, fear of what she might find held her back. After what felt like hours, she folded the letter and tucked it into her pocket, her resolve hardening. The next morning, Chloe approached Liam as he worked in the barn, his hands busy repairing a broken fence. The early sun cast a golden glow over his tanned skin, and despite everything, Chloe found herself momentarily distracted. "I need to go back to Beverly Hills," she said abruptly. Liam straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Back to the estate?" "Yes," Chloe confirmed, her tone firm. "There's something I need to look into." Liam frowned, setting his tools down. "What's going on?" Chloe hesitated. She hadn't told him about the letter, unsure if she could trust him with something so personal. "Just family matters," she replied evasively. Liam studied her for a moment before nodding. "All right, but I'm going with you." "You don't have to." "I'm going," he interrupted, his voice brooking no argument. "If it's about your stepmother, you'll need someone in your corner." Chloe sighed, a mixture of frustration and gratitude bubbling within her. "Fine." By late afternoon, they arrived at the Davis estate. The towering gates loomed ahead, a stark reminder of the wealth and power that had shaped Chloe's life. As they stepped inside, the familiar scent of roses and polished wood was almost suffocating. Victoria was in the grand sitting room, her icy blue eyes narrowing as Chloe and Liam entered unannounced. She sat poised on the velvet settee, her tailored dress immaculate as ever. "What brings you back so soon?" Victoria asked, her tone sharp. "I'm here for answers," Chloe replied, her voice steady. "And I won't leave until I get them." Victoria arched an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "Answers about what?" "You know exactly what," Chloe shot back. "My father's will. The locked drawer in his study." For a fleeting moment, Victoria's composure faltered. Her fingers tightened around the crystal glass in her hand before she regained her icy demeanor. "You're chasing shadows, Chloe." "Maybe," Chloe said, stepping closer. "But I'm done letting you control me." Chloe and Liam made their way to her father's study. the air thick with tension. The room was just as she remembered. Mahogany bookshelves lining the walls, the faint smell of leather and ink. Her father's desk sat in the center, its surface pristine, as though untouched since his passing. She approached the desk, her heart pounding. Pulling at the locked drawer, she found it as stubborn as ever. Liam appeared at her side, holding a paperclip. "Let me," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. With a few precise movements, the lock clicked open. Chloe shot him a skeptical look. "Should I be concerned about how good you are at that?" "Desperate times," he replied with a smirk. Inside the drawer lay a stack of documents and a small velvet-lined box. Chloe's fingers trembled as she lifted the papers, her eyes scanning the first page. It was a letter from her father to his lawyer, detailing suspicions about Victoria's intentions. Among the documents was a contact list, and one name stood out: Emily Harper, her father's former assistant. Chloe remembered the kind woman who had worked tirelessly for her family, only to vanish after Edward's death. "This is it," Chloe murmured, holding the paper up. Emily might know what happened. They called the number, and to Chloe's surprise, Emily answered. Her voice was cautious but familiar. "Chloe, is that really you?" "Yes," Chloe said, her throat tightening with emotion. "I need your help." Emily agreed to meet them at a secluded cafe the next day. As Chloe ended the call, she felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. The following morning, Chloe and Liam arrived at the cafe. Emily was already there, her once vibrant face now etched with lines of worry and sadness. She greeted Chloe with a tight hug, her hands trembling slightly. "I wasn't sure I'd ever see you again," Emily admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "Neither was I," Chloe replied. "But I need to know the truth." Over cups of coffee, Emily recounted the events leading up to Edward's death. She revealed that Victoria had pressured Edward to rewrite his will, threatening to expose family secrets if he refused. When Edward resisted, his health began to decline mysteriously. "He confided in me," Emily said, her voice breaking. "He believed Victoria was behind it, but he didn't have the proof." Chloe's hands clenched into fists. "She killed him." Emily nodded solemnly. "I can't prove it, but there's something else." She handed Chloe a folder containing financial records. "Victoria funneled money out of the estate through offshore accounts. She's been stealing from your family for years." As Chloe and Liam returned to the farm, they found chaos waiting for them. The barn, which had recently been repaired after the fire, had been vandalized. Spray painted across the wooden doors were the words, "Stay out of it." Liam's jaw tightened as he surveyed the damage. "Jacob Owens," he muttered, his voice low with anger. Chloe frowned. Why would he care about this? "He's been after the farm for years," Liam explained. "If Victoria's working with him, this is just the beginning." That night, Chloe sat in her room, poring over the documents Emily had given her. Each page painted a damning picture of Victoria's greed and manipulation. But one document stood out, a transaction involving Jacob Owens. Her blood ran cold. Victoria and Jacob weren't just allies. They were actively conspiring to sabotage the Carter farm. As the clock struck midnight, Chloe's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You're in over your head. Back off, or there will be consequences." Chloe stared at the screen, her heart racing. She looked out the window toward the barn, the faint outline of the damaged structure barely visible in the moonlight. For the first time, fear crept into her resolve, but as her thoughts turned to Liam and the farm, a spark of defiance ignited within her. Victoria and her cronies might be ruthless, but Chloe wasn't about to back down. The fight was just beginning. The early morning light filtered through the cracks in the barn, illuminating the remnants of the previous night's vandalism. The air was thick with tension as Chloe stood beside Liam, both staring at the spray-painted threat across the wooden doors. Stay out of it. The reality of Victoria's reach had settled in like an unwelcome guest. Liam clenched his fists, his jaw tight with anger. "This isn't just about you anymore," he said, his voice low but steady. "She's coming after both of us now." Chloe glanced at the barn, her mind racing. The damage was more than physical. It was a clear warning, one meant to intimidate her into submission. But instead of fear, it ignited a spark of defiance. "Then we fight back," she said, her green eyes blazing. The day began with the grim task of cleaning up the damage. Neighbors trickled in to help, their concern evident. Among them was Martha Jenkins, the wise and outspoken neighbor, who had become a staunch ally. She stood with her cane, surveying the damage with a grim expression. "Victoria's playing dirty," Martha said, her tone laced with disdain. "But she doesn't know this community. We stand with our own." Chloe felt a surge of gratitude. Despite her initial struggles to fit in, these people were rallying around her and Liam's. "Thank you, Martha," she said sincerely. "I won't let her win." The support of the community became evident as locals pitched in to repair the barn. While hammering boards into place, Ethan, Liam's younger brother, pulled Chloe aside. His skepticism about her had softened since her arrival, but his concern was evident. "This isn't just some petty feud, Chloe," Ethan warned. "Victoria's dangerous. If you're not careful, she'll destroy everything." "I know," Chloe replied, her tone resolute, "but I'm not backing down. Not this time." That afternoon, Chloe decided to confront Victoria directly. Armed with the documents Emily had uncovered, she returned to the Davis estate. Liam insisted on accompanying her, a quiet but reassuring presence by her side. Victoria greeted them in the study, her polished exterior betraying none of the chaos she had unleashed. She sat behind the imposing oak desk, her icy blue eyes narrowing as Chloe laid the documents on the table. "Falsified transactions, offshore accounts," Chloe said, her voice steady but sharp. "You've been stealing from my father's estate for years." Victoria's lips curled into a thin smile. "You're grasping at straws, darling. Do you think a few old papers will hold up in court?" "They will, when paired with the testimony of Emily Harper," Chloe shot back. For the first time, Victoria's composure faltered. "Emily," she repeated, her tone icy. "She's always been loyal to a fault. It's a shame, really." "She's not the only one who sees through you," Chloe continued. "You may have fooled everyone else, but not anymore." Victoria leaned forward, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You're playing a dangerous game, Chloe. Walk away now, or you'll regret it." Chloe's pulse quickened, but she held her ground. "No, Victoria. You'll regret underestimating me." Later that evening, Chloe met with Emily to discuss their next steps. They pored over the documents, searching for additional proof of Victoria's wrongdoing. Among the files was a hospital record that caught Chloe's attention. It detailed her father's final days, listing symptoms consistent with poisoning. "This is it," Chloe said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She didn't just steal from him, she killed him." Emily nodded grimly. "We need an expert to confirm it. But this could be the smoking gun we've been looking for." The revelation left Chloe reeling. Her father's death wasn't just a tragic loss. It was a calculated move by Victoria to seize control of the estate. She clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. She's not getting away with this. Back at the farm, Liam found Chloe sitting on the porch, staring out at the fields. The weight of the day's discoveries was etched on her face. Without a word, he sat beside her, their shoulders brushing. "You don't have to carry this alone," Liam said quietly. Chloe turned to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and vulnerability. "I don't know how you do it," she admitted. "The farm, the threats, everything. How do you stay so calm?" Liam shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "You learn to take things one day at a time, and you find people worth fighting for." Chloe's breath hitched at the sincerity in his voice. For a moment, the tension between them softened, replaced by an unspoken understanding. The next morning, a sheriff's car pulled up to the farmhouse. Chloe and Liam exchanged wary glances as the officer approached, holding an envelope. "This came across my desk this morning," the sheriff said, handing it to Liam. "Thought you'd want to see it." Inside was a legal notice accusing Liam of financial misconduct and threatening foreclosure on the farm. Chloe's heart sank as she read the baseless accusations. It was clear this was Victoria's doing, another attempt to undermine them. "She's trying to take everything," Liam said, his voice tight with anger. "But I'm not letting her." Chloe placed a hand on his arm. "Neither am I." Determined to fight back, Chloe rallied the local community. She and Liam organized a town meeting, sharing their struggles and asking for support. The turnout was overwhelming, with neighbors offering everything from financial assistance to legal advice. Martha Jenkins stood at the front of the room, her voice strong despite her rage. "Victoria Davis doesn't scare us," she declared. "This town takes care of its own." The unity of the community gave Chloe hope. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged, not just on the farm, but in the lives of these people. But just as things seemed to be turning around, disaster struck. Late one evening, as Chloe and Liam worked on a new proposal to save the farm, flashing red and blue lights lit up the driveway. The sheriff stepped out of the car, his expression grave. "Liam Carter, you're under arrest." "What?" Chloe exclaimed, her voice rising in disbelief. "We received evidence of financial fraud," the sheriff explained, producing a warrant. "You'll need to come with us." As Liam was handcuffed and led to the car, Chloe stood frozen, her mind racing. This was Victoria's doing, she was sure of it. But as the car disappeared down the road, one thought consumed her. How far would Victoria go to destroy them? The farmhouse was eerily quiet that night. The weight of Liam's arrest hung heavy in the air, leaving Chloe pacing the kitchen, her thoughts a chaotic storm. The coffee in her cup had long gone cold, untouched as her mind raced through scenarios. Every instinct told her that Victoria's manipulations were at the heart of this crisis, but proving it was another matter. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped Chloe out of her reverie. She rushed to the door, finding Ethan stepping out, his face tight with concern. "What are we going to do?" he asked, his voice strained. Chloe squared her shoulders, determination flickering in her green eyes. "We're going to fight." The following morning, Chloe visited Martha Jenkins, clutching the legal documents that had been used to implicate Liam. Martha's sharp eyes scanned the papers before she shook her head with a scowl. "This reeks of foul play," Martha said. "Victoria's fingerprints are all over this." "She won't stop until she's destroyed everything," Chloe admitted, her voice trembling with frustration. "But I won't let her win." Martha placed a reassuring hand on Chloe's arm. "You've got the heart for this fight, girl. And you've got us. We'll rally the town." Word spread quickly, and by the afternoon, the Carter farm was abuzz with activity. Neighbors arrived with offers of help, from legal advice to financial aid. Despite the looming threat, The sense of solidarity bolstered Chloe's spirits. Emily Harper arrived at the farm that evening, her presence a welcome relief. She brought with her a folder of documents she had been compiling since Edward Davis's death. "If Victoria's behind this, we'll find the proof," Emily assured Chloe. Together, they pored over the evidence, piecing together a timeline that revealed Victoria's escalating attacks. Among the documents was a bank record showing a suspicious transaction linked to the same lawyer representing the fraudulent case against Liam. "This could be it," Emily said, tapping the page. "If we can trace this to Victoria, it'll expose her involvement." Chloe nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then, let's start digging." As Emily and Chloe worked to build their case, Chloe realized the importance of winning public support. She arranged a town meeting at the local community center, determined to rally the people behind Liam's innocence and expose Victoria's schemes. The room was packed, filled with neighbors, local journalists, and even a few city officials. Chloe stood at the podium, her voice steady despite the anxiety churning inside her. "Many of you know me as an outsider," she began, her gaze sweeping the room. "But over the past months, I've come to see this town as my home. Liam Carter is one of the most honest, hard-working men I've ever met, and he doesn't deserve what's happening to him." She held up the evidence she and Emily had gathered, detailing the timeline of Victoria's interference. "This isn't just about Liam or me. It's about standing up to someone who thinks they're above the law. Together, we can fight back." The room erupted in applause, and Chloe felt a flicker of hope. The people were behind her now, and their support would be a powerful weapon against Victoria. The turning point came when Grace Porter, a sharp and resourceful lawyer, arrived at the farm. Grace had been following the case from afar and offered her services after hearing Chloe's public plea. "Victoria Davis is formidable," Grace said, her tone serious as she reviewed the evidence. "But she's also arrogant. That's where we'll find her weakness." Grace's involvement brought a renewed sense of direction. She advised Chloe to focus on discrediting the fraudulent evidence, starting with the bank records Emily had uncovered. Meanwhile, Ethan began to show a surprising shift in attitude. Once skeptical of Chloe, he now worked alongside her to protect the farm. Late one evening, as they repaired a damaged fence, he finally broke the silence. "I didn't think you had it in you," Ethan admitted, his voice gruff. "But you're proving me wrong." Chloe glanced at him, surprised by the admission. "Thanks, Ethan. That means a lot." "Just don't let us down," he added, his tone softening. "Liam's counting on you." The day of Liam's preliminary hearing arrived, and the courtroom buzzed with tension. Victoria's lawyer, Richard, presented the fabricated evidence with confidence, but Grace was relentless in her cross-examination. "Mr. Lawson," Grace said, her voice sharp, "can you explain how this supposed transaction conveniently appeared just as my client's farm began to thrive?" Richard stammered, his polished demeanor faltering under Grace's scrutiny. It was clear that the cracks in their case were beginning to show. During a recess, Emily rushed into the courthouse, a triumphant look on her face. "I found it," she said breathlessly, holding up a flash drive. The drive contained surveillance footage from the bank, showing one of Victoria's investigators meeting with the bank manager on the day the false documents were created. "This proves the whole thing was a setup," Emily said. Chloe and Grace quickly presented the new evidence to the judge, and the tide began to turn. The charges against Liam were dismissed, and the judge ordered an investigation into the fraudulent claims. Back at the farm, Liam's return was met with cheers and relief from the community. As he stepped out of the car, Chloe rushed to him, throwing her arms around his neck. "You're back," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I told you we'd get through this, Liam replied, his arms tightening around her. That night, the farm buzzed with renewed energy as neighbors gathered to celebrate the victory. But even amidst the laughter and relief, Chloe knew the battle wasn't over. Victoria's reach was long, and her next move was unpredictable. As the celebration wound down, Emily pulled Chloe aside, her expression serious. "There's something else you need to see," she said, handing Chloe a document. It was a copy of Edward Davis's medical records, highlighting discrepancies in his treatment during his final days. "Victoria didn't just steal from him," Emily said quietly. "She might have killed him." Chloe stared at the document, her heart pounding. This wasn't just about inheritance or property anymore. It was about justice for her father. "I'm going to take her down," Chloe said, her voice steady and full of resolve. "Then let's get to work," Emily replied, her own determination matching Chloe's. The Carter farm buzzed with a newfound energy as Liam resumed his role as its steady backbone. His return from the false imprisonment was a victory for the community, but beneath the surface, tensions remained high. Chloe could sense it in the way he avoided eye contact during their late-night conversations and how he threw himself into work, avoiding the heavy weight of their shared battle. Days after the court dismissed Liam's charges, the farm was still adjusting to the whirlwind of events. Chloe sat at the dining table, poring over documents with Emily. They were meticulously connecting the dots between Victoria's schemes and her network of co-conspirators. "This medical record," Chloe began, her voice wavering slightly. "If it's true, if she really poisoned my father—" Emily cut her off gently, placing a hand over Chloe's. "We'll prove it. But we need more than suspicion. We need a confession, or undeniable evidence." The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation pressing down on them both. Across the table, Liam's younger brother, Ethan, watched with a furrowed brow. His usual skepticism had given way to quiet support since Liam's arrest, though he was still grappling with his doubts about Chloe. As Chloe focused on uncovering the truth about her father's death, a new issue surfaced. Martha Jenkins arrived at the farm early one morning, her cane tapping sharply against the porch as she called out, "Chloe, Liam, get out here." They found Martha standing with a newspaper in hand. The headline in bold, "Carter Farms Finances Under Scrutiny." The article detailed supposed financial irregularities, clearly planted by Victoria's allies to undermine their credibility. "She's not backing down," Martha muttered, her lips pursed with frustration. "This is her way of turning the town against you." Liam clenched his fists, his blue eyes flashing with anger. "Let her try. We've come too far to let her take us down now." Chloe nodded, her jaw tightening. "We'll fight back with the truth." Later that afternoon, Ethan approached Chloe as she sorted through the farm's accounts. His usual brusque demeanor was replaced by an edge of hesitation. "I think you need to see this," he said, handing her a photograph. Chloe's heart sank as she stared at the image. It showed Jacob Owens, the neighboring farmer who had once offered to buy Liam's land, shaking hands with Victoria's lawyer, Richard Lawson. "She's working with him," Ethan said grimly. "He's been trying to push us off this land from the start." Chloe's mind raced. Jacob's offers to buy the farm had always seemed opportunistic, but this confirmed a deeper conspiracy. "He's more than just an opportunist," she muttered. "He's her inside man." Chloe shared the revelation with Grace Porter, who immediately set about incorporating it into their strategy. Grace was relentless, her sharp wit and calm demeanor a steadying presence as they prepared for the next hearing. "Jacob Owens is just another pawn," Grace said during a late-night meeting, We'd need to cut off Victoria's ability to use him against us. The courtroom was packed the following week, as Grace presented the photograph, linking Jacob directly to Victoria's efforts to sabotage the Carter farm. The tension was palpable as Jacob was called to the stand. Under Grace's withering cross-examination, Jacob crumbled. He admitted to receiving payments from Victoria in exchange for his cooperation. The admission was a bombshell, and the courtroom erupted in murmurs. The fallout from Jacob's confession rippled through the community. Many of the farmers who had been swayed by Victoria's smear campaign began to rally around Chloe and Liam once more. Ethan, however, remained restless. One evening, as the family gathered in the kitchen, Ethan stood abruptly. "I need to make something right," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He explained that he had overheard Jacob and Richard discussing another scheme to undermine the farm, involving falsified documents that were to be presented at the next hearing. "I should have said something sooner," Ethan admitted, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I didn't want to believe it, but I can't sit by and let them do this to us." Chloe placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing, Ethan. We'll use this to stop them." Emily's efforts to uncover Victoria's financial misdeeds bore fruit when she traced a series of offshore accounts back to a shell corporation under Victoria's control. The accounts held millions, undoubtedly stolen from Edward Davis's estate. "This is the proof we've been looking for," Emily said, handing the documents to Chloe. "She can't deny this." Chloe and Grace worked tirelessly to compile the evidence into a coherent narrative that would dismantle Victoria's defense. As the trial date loomed, the tension at the farm grew palpable. The courtroom was packed for the final hearing. Grace opened with a powerful statement, painting a damning picture of Victoria's greed and manipulation. When it was Victoria's turn to testify, her usual icy composure faltered under Grace's relentless questioning. "Mrs. Davis," Grace began, holding up the medical records, "can you explain why your late husband's medical treatments were overseen by a doctor with no prior experience in his condition?" Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line. "I trusted the professionals to do their job." Grace stepped closer, her voice sharp. "And did you trust them to administer a medication that is now linked to his premature death?" A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Victoria's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. The judge ruled in favor of Chloe and Liam, declaring the evidence against Victoria overwhelming. The victory was met with cheers from the Carter Farms supporters, but Chloe couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. That evening, as the family gathered to celebrate, Emily approached Chloe with a somber expression. "There's something else," she said, handing Chloe a sealed envelope. "This was left at my office." The envelope contained a single sheet of paper with the words, "This isn't the end." Chloe stared at the note, her resolve hardening. "She won't stop," she said softly. "But neither will we." The chapter ends with Grace discovering a hidden clause in Edward's will, one that threatens to upend everything Chloe has fought for, unless she can fulfill its requirements within a year. As the weight of this new challenge settles over the farm, Chloe and Liam exchange a look of shared determination. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The discovery of the hidden clause in Edward Davis's will cast a long shadow over the farm. While the courtroom victory against Victoria had been a significant milestone, this new revelation threatened to unravel everything Chloe and Liam had fought to protect. The clause required Chloe to prove her worth by ensuring the Davis family legacy remained intact, not just financially, but through meaningful contributions to the community. If she failed, the inheritance would default to charity. The morning after the courtroom decision, a sleek black car pulled into the driveway of the Carter farm. Chloe, Liam, and Emily gathered on the porch as the door swung open, revealing a tall man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. "Chloe Davis?" the man asked, his voice measured but tinged with resentment. "I am," Chloe replied, stepping forward cautiously. "And you are?" "Michael Anderson," he said, his gaze steady. "Your half-brother." The revelation struck like a thunderclap. Chloe blinked, struggling to process his words. She had known about the possibility of other heirs, but never imagined meeting one under these circumstances. "I think we need to talk," Michael said, his tone cold but not hostile. Over coffee at the kitchen table, Michael revealed his story. His mother had been involved with Edward Davis years before his marriage to Victoria. While Edward had sent financial support, the funds had mysteriously stopped after Victoria entered the picture. "She made sure we were erased from his life," Michael said bitterly, his jaw tightening. "I grew up watching my mother struggle while you lived in luxury." Chloe bristled at his tone. "I didn't choose this life, Michael, and I've been fighting to protect it from the same woman who wronged you." Their exchange was tense, neither willing to fully trust the other. Liam, sitting silently at the edge of the room, finally spoke up. "If you're here to challenge her inheritance, you'll be playing into Victoria's hands." Michael's eyes narrowed. "I'm not here for money. I want answers, and I want to see her pay for what she did to my family." Despite their rocky start, Michael agreed to help Chloe expose Victoria's schemes. Emily provided documents tracing missing funds from Edward's estate, which Michael cross-referenced with his mother's financial records. The findings painted a clear picture. Victoria had intercepted and embezzled funds meant for Michael and his mother. "I knew she was ruthless," Chloe said, studying the records, "but this is calculated cruelty." As they worked together, Michael's initial hostility softened. He saw firsthand how much Chloe had sacrificed to protect her father's legacy and the farm. "You're not what I expected," Michael admitted one evening as they sorted through documents. "I thought you'd be another spoiled rich kid." Chloe smiled wryly. "And I thought you'd be a bitter rival. Guess we're both full of surprises." Meanwhile, Jacob Owens continued his attempts to undermine the Carter farm. Michael uncovered emails between Jacob and Victoria, outlining a plan to sabotage the farm's organic certification process. The scheme would have crippled their ability to sell produce, effectively bankrupting them. "This is her way of tightening the noose," Michael said, slamming the printouts onto the table. Liam's fists clenched. "We need to stop him before he does any more damage." The group devised a plan to gather hard evidence against Jacob. Emily suggested setting up surveillance at a meeting Jacob had arranged with one of Victoria's associates. Michael volunteered to go undercover, using his connection to Victoria's network as leverage. "Are you sure about this?" Chloe asked, her concern evident. Michael nodded. "If we're going to take them down, we need to fight fire with fire." The sting operation took place late one night at a local diner. Michael, wearing a hidden recording device, sat across from Jacob and Richard Lawson. The conversation was tense, with Jacob boasting about his role in sabotaging the Carter farm and hinting at future plans. "I'm telling you, once the certification is pulled, they won't have a leg to stand on," Jacob said, his tone smug. "And the Davis fortune?" Richard asked. Jacob smirked. "It's as good as hers. Victoria's playing the long game." Michael's blood boiled, but he kept his composure. "And what's my cut in all this?" he asked, leaning back casually. Jacob hesitated, glancing at Richard. "Let's just say you'll be taken care of." The recording provided enough evidence to expose Jacob's involvement and deal a significant blow to Victoria's credibility. As Chloe and Michael worked to dismantle Victoria's network, the farm faced its own challenges. A summer drought threatened their crops, and the community's faith wavered as rumors spread about the farm's instability. Chloe organized a town meeting, addressing the concerns head-on. Standing before a skeptical crowd, she spoke passionately about their vision for the farm and its role in the community. "We've faced challenges before," Chloe said, her voice steady. "But this farm is more than just land. It's a symbol of resilience, and I'm asking all of you to stand with us." Her words struck a chord, and several farmers offered their support, including Martha Jenkins, who pledged to donate water from her well to help sustain the crops. The victory against Jacob and Richard gave Chloe and Michael the momentum they needed. They filed formal charges against Jacob for fraud and collusion, further isolating Victoria from her remaining allies. At the same time, Chloe and Liam strengthened their bond. One evening, as they worked together to repair a broken fence, Liam paused, watching Chloe struggle with a stubborn nail. "You've changed," he said, his tone admiring. Chloe looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You're not the same person who showed up here months ago," Liam said. "You've fought for this farm, for your father's legacy, and for all of us." Chloe smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." As the chapter drew to a close, Emily burst into the farmhouse, clutching a laptop. "You won't believe what I found," she said, her eyes wide. She revealed the existence of an offshore account in Victoria's name, containing millions in stolen funds. The account was linked to shell corporations and fraudulent deals dating back decades. "This could be the nail in her coffin," Emily said. Chloe stared at the screen, her resolve hardening. "Then, let's bury her." The Carter farm was alive with activity as Chloe, Liam, Michael, and Emily worked tirelessly to prepare their case against Victoria. The evidence of the offshore account was a breakthrough, but it also made their battle more dangerous. They knew Victoria wouldn't back down easily, and the stakes had never been higher. Chloe's heart raced as she adjusted her evening gown in the mirror. The annual Anderson Foundation Gala was a glittering event attended by high-profile guests, from politicians to business magnates. This year, the event was being held at a luxurious estate in Los Angeles, and Victoria was hosting it. "This is our chance to expose her," Chloe said to Liam as they prepared. "If we reveal the evidence in front of her supporters, she'll have no room to manipulate the narrative." Liam placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "We've got this. You're stronger than she is, and the truth is on our side." Michael and Emily joined them, each carrying critical pieces of evidence. Financial records, correspondence linking Victoria to the offshore account, and Jacob's recorded conversation. The group rehearsed their plan one final time before heading into the lion's den. The gala venue was a sprawling mansion, adorned with sparkling lights and lavish decorations. Guests milled about, sipping champagne and exchanging polite conversation. Victoria, radiant in a silver gown, held court in the center of the room, her practiced smile hiding the storm brewing beneath the surface. When Chloe and her group entered, all eyes turned to them. Whispers rippled through the crowd as Chloe, dressed in a sleek black gown, walked confidently toward the center of the room. Victoria's smile faltered for a moment before she recovered. "Chloe," she greeted, her tone dripping with faux warmth. "What a surprise to see you here." Chloe met her gaze without flinching. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." As the evening progressed, Chloe and her group strategically mingled with the guests, quietly gathering support. Emily spoke with journalists, hinting at the explosive story about to break, while Michael and Liam shared pieces of their findings with potential allies. Finally, Chloe took the stage. The room fell silent as she addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began, her voice steady. "This event is meant to honor my father's legacy and the work he began. But tonight, I need to share a truth that has been hidden for far too long." Chloe revealed the evidence of Victoria's embezzlement and manipulation. As she spoke, Emily distributed copies of the documents to the guests, while Michael played Jacob's recording on a projector. The room erupted into chaos. Gasps and murmurs filled the air as the damning evidence unfolded before them. Victoria's supporters began to edge away, their expressions shifting from shock to disdain. Victoria, pale but composed, stepped forward. "This is absurd," she said, her voice icy. "These are baseless accusations from a bitter girl who can't accept her place." Emily stepped forward, holding up the final piece of evidence, a contract between Victoria and a pharmaceutical company. "This document ties you directly to Edward Davis's death," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "You orchestrated his murder to seize control of his estate." Victoria's mask cracked. "You can't prove any of this," she spat. "It's all fabricated." Before Chloe could respond, the doors burst open and a team of law enforcement officers entered the room. Liam had tipped them off earlier, ensuring they were ready to act once the evidence was presented. "Victoria Davis," the lead officer announced, "you are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder." As the officers placed her in handcuffs, Victoria turned to Chloe, her eyes blazing with fury. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You'll regret this." Chloe stood tall, her voice unwavering. "No, Victoria. The only regret is yours." Back at the farm, the atmosphere was a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The community rallied around Chloe and Liam, offering their support as they worked to rebuild. The gala had been a turning point, but the fight wasn't over. Michael, who had been skeptical of Chloe at first, now saw her as a true ally. "You proved me wrong," he admitted one evening, as they worked side by side in the fields. "You're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for all of us." Chloe smiled. "We're stronger together, Michael. And this farm is proof of that." Despite their victory, danger still loomed. A week after the gala, Chloe received an anonymous letter. The message was chilling. "You've made powerful enemies. Drop the case or face the consequences." Chloe showed the letter to Liam, who immediately called for increased security at the farm. "We can't let our guard down," he said. "Victoria's network is still out there." Emily suggested reaching out to the authorities for protection, but Chloe was determined not to live in fear. "We'll face whatever comes our way," she said firmly. "This farm is our home, and we're not going anywhere." To counter the growing threats, Chloe and Liam organized a town meeting. They shared their story with the community, emphasizing the importance of standing together against corruption. Martha Jenkins, the wise neighbor who had supported them from the beginning, stood up to speak. "This farm has become a beacon of hope for all of us," she said, "and we won't let anyone take that away." The crowd erupted in applause, and Chloe felt a renewed sense of purpose. With the community behind them, they were stronger than ever. Late one evening, as Chloe and Liam sifted through the last of Edward's files, they uncovered a sealed envelope marked with the initials EA inside. Was a letter from Edward to Chloe, written shortly before his death. In the letter, Edward detailed his suspicions about Victoria and expressed his hope that Chloe would carry on his legacy. He also hinted at a secret project he had been working on, something he believed could change the future of sustainable farming. This could be the key to everything, Chloe said, her eyes alight with determination. The Carter farm was cloaked in an eerie stillness, a sharp contrast to the storm brewing in Chloe's life. With Victoria behind bars, one might have assumed the battle was over. But Chloe knew better. The forces arrayed against her were vast, and as the days passed, the pressure only mounted. The days following Victoria's arrest were a whirlwind. Reporters swarmed the estate, neighbors whispered behind closed doors, and distant relatives reappeared, eager to stake their claims. Chloe found herself inundated with calls, questions, and requests, but she refused to be overwhelmed. "We've come too far to falter now," she told Liam, as they sorted through documents late into the night. Liam nodded, his expression grim. "But the more we dig, the more enemies we make." The next morning, disaster struck. Liam discovered their irrigation system had been tampered with, leaving the crops dry and wilting. The damage was extensive, threatening the farm's already precarious finances. "This isn't a coincidence," Liam said, examining the severed pipes. "Someone's trying to cripple us." Chloe clenched her fists. "Victoria's network isn't finished with us yet. They're trying to force us out." Michael joined them, his expression equally troubled. "We need to reinforce security. If they can do this, what's stopping them from something worse?" The stress began to take its toll on Chloe and Liam's relationship. Late one evening, after another long day of repairs, they found themselves arguing. "You're taking on too much," Liam said, frustration clear in his voice. "You can't fight everyone at once." "And what am I supposed to do?" Chloe shot back. "Sit back and let them destroy everything we've built?" "You're not the only one fighting," Liam said, his voice rising. "But you're so focused on revenge that you're losing sight of what matters." Chloe stared at him, her chest heaving. "This isn't just about revenge. It's about justice." The argument ended with Liam storming out, leaving Chloe alone in the quiet house. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of documents that seemed to mock her. For the first time, doubt crept into her mind. Was she truly fighting for justice, or had the battle consumed her? The following day, Emily arrived with promising news. "I've uncovered more files from Edward's estate," she said, spreading the documents across the table. "These tie Victoria's network to a shell company responsible for laundering money." Chloe leaned over the papers, her determination rekindled. "If we can link these to the sabotage, we'll have enough to shut them down for good." That evening, Liam returned, carrying Edward's journal. "I found something," he said, his voice tentative. "It's about the secret project your father mentioned." Chloe took the journal and flipped to the marked page. Edward had written about a groundbreaking agricultural method he was developing, a way to maximize crop yields while preserving the environment. It was clear he had intended for the project to be his legacy. "This could save the farm," Chloe whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "It's exactly what we need." Liam placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then, let's make it happen." Chloe and Liam shared Edward's plans with the community, and the response was overwhelming. Farmers, neighbors, and even former skeptics came together to help implement the project. Martha Jenkins, always a source of wisdom, said, "This isn't just about saving the farm. It's about proving that we're stronger together." The farm became a hive of activity, with volunteers working tirelessly to bring Edward's vision to life. For the first time in weeks, Chloe felt a glimmer of hope. But the victory was short-lived. One night, as Chloe was reviewing paperwork, a brick crashed through the window, shattering glass across the floor. Attached to it was a note. "Last warning, leave or pay the price." Liam rushed in, his face dark with anger. "This ends now," he said. "We're not letting them scare us into submission." Chloe agreed, but the incident left her shaken. The threats were becoming more personal, and she couldn't ignore the possibility that someone close to them was involved. Michael suggested reaching out to Grace Porter, the lawyer who had defended Liam during his arrest. "She's the best chance we have of taking this to court," he said. Grace agreed to take on the case, and her arrival brought a sense of stability. "We'll build a case so strong they won't know what hit them," she assured them. Under Grace's guidance, Chloe and her team began compiling evidence, from financial records to witness statements. The process was grueling, but it gave them a renewed sense of purpose. As the case progressed, Chloe found herself at odds with Michael. He proposed a risky plan to confront Jacob Owens directly, but Chloe refused. "We can't risk everything on a confrontation," she argued. "We need to stick to the legal route." Michael's frustration boiled over. "Legal routes take time, and we don't have that. Every day we wait, they get stronger." The tension reached a boiling point, and Michael stormed out, leaving Chloe feeling more isolated than ever. Late one night, Chloe received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was cold and unfamiliar. "You think you're safe because Victoria's gone," the caller said. "You've only scratched the surface. Walk away now, or you'll regret it." The line went dead, leaving Chloe trembling. She knew the battle was far from over, and the next move would be the most dangerous yet. The day of reckoning arrived with the sun barely cresting the horizon, casting long shadows over the Davis estate. Chloe stood by the window of her father's study, her heart pounding as she reviewed the evidence for the 100th time. The culmination of months of struggle hinged on the proceedings that lay ahead. The courtroom was a stark contrast to the lush halls of the Davis mansion. Rows of hard benches were filled with reporters, spectators, and supporters. On one side, Chloe sat with Liam, Michael, Emily, and Grace, their determination etched into their faces. Across the aisle, Victoria, impeccably dressed despite her incarceration, exuded an aura of defiance. Grace Porter whispered to Chloe, "Remember, today isn't just about evidence. It's about showing the world the truth." Chloe nodded, though her hands trembled as she clutched her notes. The trial began with the prosecution laying out their case against Victoria. Grace's opening statement was a masterpiece, weaving together facts and emotions that painted a damning picture of Victoria's schemes. She leveraged wealth and influence to manipulate, to deceive, and ultimately to destroy, Grace declared, her voice ringing clear in the courtroom. But today, we expose her for what she truly is, a fraud. The first witnesses were brought to the stand: financial experts, former employees, and even a few reluctant associates of Victoria. Each testimony added another layer to the web of deceit. Halfway through the trial, Grace called an unexpected witness, Margaret Jenkins. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as the elderly woman made her way to the stand. Margaret testified about Victoria's attempts to bribe her into silence after she overheard a conversation linking Victoria to Edward's suspicious death. Her testimony was heartfelt, and her words carried the weight of decades of integrity. "She told me to stay out of it," Margaret said, her voice steady despite her age. "But I couldn't. Edward deserved better." Victoria's legal team was formidable, and they fought back with ruthless efficiency. They questioned the credibility of the witnesses, dismissed the financial evidence as circumstantial, and painted Victoria as a victim of a vindictive stepdaughter. "Mrs. Davis has always acted in the best interests of her family," her lead attorney argued. "This trial is nothing more than a personal vendetta." Victoria herself took the stand, her composed demeanor masking the venom beneath her words. She accused Chloe of being ungrateful, reckless, and incapable of understanding the complexities of their family business. "You've always been too naive to see the bigger picture," Victoria said, her eyes boring into Chloe's. "Everything I did was for this family." As the trial wore on, Chloe began to fear they wouldn't have enough to convict Victoria. But then, Emily uncovered a critical piece of evidence: a hidden recording of Victoria discussing her plans with Jacob Owens. In the recording, Victoria's voice was unmistakable. "We need to ensure the Carter farm doesn't recover. If they're out of the picture, Chloe will have no choice but to come back under my control." When the recording was played in court, the room fell silent. Victoria's facade cracked for the first time, her composure giving way to visible panic. Grace's closing argument was a powerful blend of logic and emotion. She spoke of Chloe's courage, Edward's legacy, and the community's fight against corruption. "This trial isn't just about justice for Edward Davis," Grace said, her voice trembling with passion. "It's about standing up to those who believe their wealth and power place them above the law. Today, we say enough." The jury deliberated for hours, each minute feeling like an eternity. When they finally returned, the tension in the room was palpable. "We find the defendant, Victoria Davis, guilty on all counts," the foreperson announced. A collective gasp filled the courtroom, followed by a ripple of applause. Victoria's expression hardened, but she said nothing as she was led away in handcuffs. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Chloe and her allies, shouting questions and snapping photos. Chloe stood tall, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. "This victory isn't just mine," she said. "It belongs to everyone who refused to be silenced, who fought for the truth, and who believed in justice." Liam stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "You did it," he whispered, pride shining in his eyes. But the victory was bittersweet. As Chloe returned to the estate that evening, she found a letter waiting for her on the doorstep. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the message was clear. Victoria may be gone, but her allies remain. This isn't over. Chloe's resolve hardened as she read the words. She knew the fight was far from finished, but she was ready for whatever came next. The courtroom victory over Victoria Davis marked a pivotal moment in Chloe's life, but it was far from the end of her battle. The conviction brought with it a tidal wave of media attention, legal complexities, and, most notably, lingering shadows of Victoria's influence. While Victoria herself sat in a high-security prison cell, the ripples of her schemes continued to unsettle the lives of Chloe and those she held dear. The days following the trial were a whirlwind. News outlets splashed Chloe's name across headlines, dubbing her both a hero and a disruptor. Back at the farm, the Carter family tried to resume normalcy, but Victoria's reaching extended far beyond the courtroom. Chloe sat at the kitchen table one evening, her laptop open to a flood of emails. The Davis estate's reputation had taken a hit from the revelations during the trial, and Chloe was inundated with inquiries from concerned business partners and charities tied to her family's name. "Do you regret it?" Liam asked, sliding a cup of coffee across the table. Chloe looked up, her face lined with exhaustion. "No," she replied firmly. "But cleaning up her mess feels impossible." Liam reached for her hand. "You're not alone in this. We'll figure it out together." Determined to reclaim her father's legacy, Chloe began working with Grace Porter and Emily Harper to restructure the Davis estate. Their first step was to sever ties with any businesses or individuals linked to Victoria's corrupt dealings. Michael joined the effort, using his newfound understanding of his father's values to assist. He proposed an ambitious idea: a complete rebranding of the estate's philanthropic arm, transforming it into a foundation focused on supporting sustainable farming practices. We call it Edward's Legacy Foundation, Michael said during a brainstorming session at the farm. It's not just about cleaning up her mess, it's about building something better. Chloe's eyes lit up at the idea. A legacy my father would be proud of, she said, her voice brimming with hope. As the dust settled, Chloe and Liam found themselves with a rare moment of peace. One crisp evening, under the light of a full moon, Liam led Chloe to the old oak tree that had become a symbol of their journey together. "I've been thinking," Liam began, his voice steady despite the nerves he felt, "about everything we've been through, about how we've fought side by side, through fire and courtrooms and everything in between." Chloe smiled, her heart racing. And I don't want to face anything without you," he said, dropping to one knee. From his pocket, he produced a simple yet elegant ring. "Chloe Davis, will you marry me?" Tears welled in Chloe's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Liam. 1,000 times, yes." Their happiness was short-lived. The day after the proposal, Chloe received an anonymous message warning her of a new adversary. The letter claimed to come from someone who had once worked closely with Victoria. "Victoria may be in prison," the message read, "but her web of allies remains strong. You've only scratched the surface." The letter came with a list of names, including Jacob Owens, who had been conspicuously quiet since the trial. Among them was a name Chloe didn't recognize: Theodore Ashcroft, a high-powered financier with a reputation for ruthlessness. Grace reviewed the letter and immediately grew concerned. If Ashcroft's involved, this could escalate quickly. He's not just another business partner, he's a predator. While grappling with the implications of the letter, Chloe received an unexpected visitor. A man in his late 40s, with salt and pepper hair and a weathered briefcase, arrived unannounced at the farm. "My name is Theodore Ashcroft," he introduced himself, his voice calm but intimidating. "I believe you've heard of me." Chloe's instincts screamed to send him away, but she invited him into the farmhouse, her allies close by. Over coffee, Ashcroft laid out his intentions. "I was a silent partner in some of Victoria's ventures," he admitted. "But now, I want to distance myself from her. I have information that could help you, but it comes at a price." "What kind of price?" Liam asked, his tone wary. Ashcroft's smile was thin. "Let's just say, I expect to be compensated for my trouble." Despite their skepticism, Chloe and Michael agreed to hear Ashcroft out. The information he provided was damning: offshore accounts, false business records, and even correspondence implicating additional players in Victoria's schemes. Among them was Jacob Owens, who had been siphoning money from Liam's farm under the guise of debt repayments. Chloe felt a surge of anger as she reviewed the documents. "She's still trying to destroy us, even from behind bars." Emily, who had been quietly scanning the files, interjected, "This could be the final piece we need to dismantle her network." Ashcroft's information came with a caveat. He wanted immunity from any legal repercussions. Chloe reluctantly agreed, knowing the value of the evidence he provided outweighed her mistrust. With Grace's guidance, Chloe and Michael worked tirelessly to compile their case against Victoria's remaining allies. They also began reaching out to the individuals and organizations who had been harmed by Victoria's schemes, offering reparations and support through the Edwards Legacy Foundation. Amid the chaos, Chloe and Liam's wedding approached. They decided to hold the ceremony at the farm, under the very oak tree where Liam had proposed. The event was a celebration of love, resilience, and new beginnings. Friends, family, and members of the community gathered to witness their vows. As Chloe and Liam exchanged rings, the challenges they had faced seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the promise of a brighter future. As the chapter closed, Chloe received a message from Grace. "The authorities are ready to move on Jacob Owens and the others," it read. "This is it." Chloe stood on the porch of the farmhouse, the setting sun casting a golden glow over the fields. Liam joined her, his arm around her shoulders. "This is the end of the line," he said. Chloe nodded, her gaze steady. Not just the end, the beginning. The courtroom battles and public exposés were over. But for Chloe, Liam, and their allies, the hard work was just beginning. The aftermath of Victoria's downfall left a void that needed to be filled, not just with reparation, but with hope, trust, and a renewed sense of purpose. This chapter delves into the personal and professional transformations that began to take shape in the wake of the chaos. Chloe stood in the center of the estate's grand hall, now eerily empty, after years of grandeur and manipulation. The Davis name, once synonymous with power and influence, had been tarnished. But Chloe was determined to rebuild it into a symbol of integrity and compassion. With Michael by her side, Chloe began restructuring the Davis family's assets. Their first move was a bold one, selling off Victoria's extravagant luxuries to fund the Edwards Legacy Foundation. "Every penny we make from this sale will go towards helping struggling farmers," Chloe announced at a press conference. The gesture was widely praised, and donations from across the country began pouring into the foundation. Back on the farm, life was changing as well. Liam, now free from the financial burdens imposed by Jacob Owens and Victoria's schemes, began expanding his operations. With Chloe's support, the Carter farm became a hub for sustainable agriculture. Michael, inspired by Liam's dedication, proposed a partnership. "What if we turn this place into a model farm? A living example of what Edwards' legacy stands for." Liam hesitated at first. "This farm has always been a family effort. Are you sure the Davis name won't overshadow that?" Chloe intervened. "This isn't about the Davis name, Liam. It's about showing people what's possible when we work together." Chloe's efforts to rebuild trust extended beyond her family name. She reached out to the local community, many of whom had been skeptical of her intentions when she first arrived. Martha Jenkins, the wise neighbor who had quietly supported Chloe, became an invaluable ally. Together, they organized community events at the farm, including workshops on sustainable farming and mentorship programs for young entrepreneurs. At one such event, Ethan Carter surprised everyone by stepping forward to share his story. "I used to doubt Chloe," he admitted, "but seeing what she's done, not just for our farm, but for this whole community, I can say I was wrong." The applause that followed marked a turning point in Chloe's relationship with Ethan and with the community. As progress was being made, the shadow of Jacob Owens loomed large. Despite his apparent retreat, rumors began circulating that he was plotting a comeback. Chloe received an anonymous tip that Owens had been quietly buying up land near the Carter farm, using shell companies to hide his involvement. Grace Porter, ever vigilant, warned Chloe to stay on guard. "He may not have Victoria backing him anymore, but that makes him even more dangerous. He's desperate." Liam, though frustrated, refused to let Owens derail their progress. "We've faced worse," he said. "We'll handle this too." For Michael, the journey of rebuilding trust was deeply personal. His decision to distance himself from Victoria had cost him years of strained relationships with both Chloe and his late father's legacy. Now, he was determined to make amends. Michael launched a new initiative under the Edwards Legacy Foundation, a program to help struggling farmers secure fair loans and avoid the kind of predatory practices that had nearly destroyed Liam. So, during a visit to a neighboring farm, Michael encountered a single mother, Rachel, who had been on the brink of losing her land. "Your foundation saved my family," she told him, tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you." Michael realized that his work wasn't just about fixing the past. It was about building a future his father would have been proud of. The culmination of Chloe and Liam's journey was their wedding, held under the oak tree that had witnessed so many pivotal moments in their lives. The farm was transformed into a picturesque venue, with fairy lights strung between the trees and tables laden with food grown right there on the land. The guest list was a testament to the relationships Chloe and Liam had built. Neighbors, former adversaries turned allies, and even some of the people who had doubted them at the start. As Chloe walked down the makeshift aisle, her eyes locked with Liam's. In that moment, all the trials and tribulations they had faced seemed to fade away. Their vows reflected not just their love for each other, but their shared commitment to the community they now called home. Amid the celebrations, a courier arrived with an unexpected delivery, a letter addressed to Chloe, written in Edward Davis's handwriting. "My dearest Chloe," it began, "if you're reading this, it means you've faced challenges I could never have foreseen. But I know you, my daughter. You have the strength, the heart, and the courage to rise above them." The letter included a final directive. Edward had set aside a piece of land, intended to be developed into a sanctuary for wildlife and sustainable farming education. It was his way of giving back to the land that had provided so much for their family. Tears streamed down Chloe's face as she read the letter aloud to Liam and Michael. "He believed in us," she said. "In me." The air was heavy with anticipation as Chloe and Liam embarked on what would become one of the most pivotal challenges in their lives. With the farm thriving and Edward's legacy foundation gaining recognition, they were finally starting to see the fruits of their labor. However, as they were about to discover, success often came with its own set of trials. One brisk autumn morning, Chloe received a call from a high-profile investor. Amanda Thornton, a charismatic and sharp-tongued entrepreneur, had heard about the foundation and its work with sustainable farming. "I see an opportunity for us to do something revolutionary," Amanda said during their meeting. "Picture this, a chain of high-tech organic farms across the country, funded by corporate investors. The profits would be immense, and your father's name would shine brighter than ever." The proposal was enticing, offering financial security and nationwide acclaim. But as Amanda laid out her plans, Chloe noticed the fine print. The project would prioritize profit margins over the farmer's autonomy, contradicting the foundation's core mission. Chloe hesitated. "This isn't just about making money," she said. "We're trying to create something meaningful." Amanda smiled, her tone shifting to one of persuasion. "Sometimes, Chloe, you have to compromise to make a real impact." As Chloe grappled with the decision, tensions arose between her and Michael. Unlike Chloe, Michael saw the partnership as a necessary step toward growth. "Think about it, Chloe," he argued. "With their backing, we could help more farmers than ever before. Isn't that the goal?" Chloe's voice wavered. "At what cost, Michael? If we sell out, we lose what makes this foundation different." Their argument echoed through the halls of the Davis estate, a stark reminder of how far they'd come and how far they could fall. Back at the farm, Liam became an anchor of reason. Chloe poured out her frustrations to him as they worked side by side in the fields. "What would you do?" she asked, her hands digging into the soil. Liam wiped the sweat from his brow. "I do what feels right in my gut." Money comes and goes, Chloe. Integrity doesn't. His words lingered with her, grounding her as she prepared to face the board of the foundation. Meanwhile, Emily Harper, ever the diligent investigator, stumbled upon something that could change everything. While reviewing the fine print of Amanda Thornton's proposal, she found connections to Jacob Owens. "I don't think this is just about corporate expansion," Emily told Chloe. "Amanda's working with Owens. He's using her to regain control." The revelation was like a punch to the gut. Chloe realized that agreeing to Amanda's terms would not only compromise the foundation's values, but also give Owens an avenue to infiltrate their work. Determined to make an informed decision, Chloe and Liam organized a town hall meeting at the farm. They invited local farmers, community members, and allies to share their perspectives on the proposed partnership. The barn was packed, the air buzzing with energy. Some voiced their support for the deal, seeing it as a way to secure their future. Others, like Martha Jenkins, passionately defended the foundation's mission. "This isn't just about numbers," Martha said, her voice shaking with emotion. "This is about people, families who rely on their land and their independence." Her words resonated deeply, reminding Chloe of what was at stake. The following week, Chloe stood before the foundation's board to deliver her decision. The weight of expectation pressed heavily on her shoulders, but her resolve was firm. "We've worked too hard to build something real," she began, her voice steady. "Partnering with Amanda Thornton would compromise everything we stand for. I won't allow that." The room erupted in murmurs, but Chloe remained steadfast. Amanda, who was present at the meeting, smiled coldly. "You'll regret this," Amanda warned. "People like you don't last long without support." Chloe met her gaze. "We'll see." Amanda's departure marked the beginning of a new wave of challenges. Jacob Owens, emboldened by his failed attempt to infiltrate the foundation, launched a smear campaign against Chloe and Liam. Headlines accused the foundation of financial mismanagement, and social media buzzed with fabricated stories about Chloe's personal life. Grace Porter worked tirelessly to counter the attacks, but the damage was done. Donations slowed, and Chloe began to fear that their progress would unravel. As the attacks mounted, Emily uncovered one final piece of evidence against Owens, a series of recordings implicating him in a broader conspiracy how to undermine local farmers. "We can't hold back anymore," Chloe said, listening to the tapes. "It's time to take him down for good." The chapter culminated in a high-stakes confrontation between Chloe, Liam, and Owens. They confronted him at a public forum, armed with evidence and the support of the community. Owens, cornered but defiant, tried to turn the crowd against them. "These people don't care about you," he sneered. "They care about their image." But Chloe's authenticity shone through. "We care because this is our home," she said, "and we won't let you destroy it." As the forum ended, Chloe and Liam stood together, exhausted but resolute. The fight wasn't over, but they had proven that their values couldn't be bought or broken. Back at the farm, under the same oak tree where they had exchanged their vows, Chloe reflected on the journey so far. "We've faced so much," she said, "but I know we're stronger for it." Liam nodded, his hand in hers. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." The early morning sun bathed the Davis estate in golden light, its warmth symbolizing the hard-fought victories that had brought Chloe, Liam, and their allies to this moment. As the day began, Chloe felt a sense of quiet determination, a mix of relief and anticipation. Today, they would solidify the legacy of Edward Davis in a way that would honor his vision and inspire generations to come. The grand opening ceremony of Edward's Legacy Foundation was a celebration unlike any other. Hundreds of supporters gathered at the estate, transformed into a venue for the occasion. Farmers from across the region arrived, sharing their stories of resilience and gratitude for the work the foundation had already begun. Chloe stood on the main stage, her voice clear and confident as she addressed the crowd. My father believed in the power of people, in the strength of communities standing together. Today we honor his dream by ensuring no one stands alone. Applause erupted, and Chloe glanced at Liam, who stood in the front row, his pride evident. Michael, now fully committed to the foundation, joined her on stage to share his own reflections. For too long, I let resentment cloud my judgment, Michael admitted. But standing here today, I see what we can achieve together. This isn't just about rebuilding farms. It's about rebuilding lives. Even as they celebrated, shadows of the past loomed. Victoria's conviction had sent shockwaves through the community, but her allies hadn't disappeared entirely. Whispers of a resurgence began to circulate, fueled by those who still clung to her influence. Emily Harper, ever vigilant, monitored these developments closely. They're trying to regroup, she warned Chloe during a quiet moment backstage. But we've exposed too much. They won't have the same power as before. Chloe nodded, determined. Then we'll make sure they don't get another chance. Amidst the celebration, Liam found a moment to pull Chloe aside. Beneath the sprawling oak tree on the estate's grounds, their favorite spot, he knelt on one knee, holding a small, understated ring. We've been through so much, Liam said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. And every step of the way, you've shown me what it means to fight for something bigger than ourselves. Chloe, will you marry me again? But this time, for love and nothing else? Tears welled in Chloe's eyes as she laughed softly. Of course, Liam. 100 times, yes. Their kiss under the oak tree was met with cheers from nearby onlookers, and the moment became yet another cherished memory in their journey. As the foundation gained momentum, Michael proposed a bold new initiative, a national campaign to support sustainable farming practices. The plan included educational programs, funding for struggling farmers, and partnerships with local governments to preserve farmland. This isn't just about helping people survive, Michael explained during a board meeting. It's about giving them the tools to thrive. The board unanimously approved the initiative, and Michael was named its director. His transformation from a disillusioned outsider to a passionate advocate was a testament to the power of second chances. Grace Porter, who had been a steadfast ally throughout their battles, announced her plans to retire. In a heartfelt goodbye, she praised Chloe for her resilience and integrity. You've done more than just carry on your father's legacy, Grace said. You've built something entirely your own. I couldn't be prouder to have been part of this journey. Chloe hugged Grace tightly, promising to honor her guidance and continue the fight for justice. As the foundation expanded, Jacob Owens resurfaced with one final act of defiance. Using his remaining influence, he filed a lawsuit against the foundation, accusing them of defamation and financial misconduct. The courtroom became a battleground once more, with Grace returning for one last case to defend the foundation. The trial was tense, filled with accusations and dramatic revelations. During cross-examination, Emily presented irrefutable evidence of Owens's continued illegal activities, dismantling his case piece by piece. The jury ruled in favor of the foundation, marking a definitive end to Owens's schemes. With the trial behind them, the foundation flourished. Farmers who had once struggled to keep their land now thrived, thanks to the resources and support provided by Edward's Legacy Foundation. Communities came together, inspired by the example set by Chloe and her team. Martha Jenkins, the wise neighbor who had been one of Chloe's earliest allies, summed it up best during a town meeting. "This isn't just about one family's legacy," she said. "It's about all of us, working together to build something better." On a quiet evening, Chloe and Liam sat together on the porch of their farmhouse, watching the sun set over the fields. The land, once on the brink of foreclosure, now symbolized hope and renewal. "I never imagined this is where life would take me," Chloe admitted, leaning against Liam. "But I wouldn't change a thing." Liam smiled, his hand resting on hers. "Me neither. We've faced everything together, and we've come out stronger." In the closing moments of the chapter, Chloe and Liam unveiled a new scholarship program under the foundation, dedicated to Edward Davis. The program would provide opportunities for young people to pursue education and careers in sustainable agriculture, ensuring that Edward's dream lived on. The final scene showed Chloe standing before a group of scholarship recipients, her voice filled with conviction. "This isn't the end of the journey. It's just the beginning. Together, we'll keep building a future where everyone too has a chance to thrive." As the sun sets on this chapter of resilience, redemption, and love, we're left wondering, what would you have done if you were in Chloe's shoes? Have you ever had to fight for what's right, even when the odds were stacked against you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. And don't forget, this is just one of many powerful stories we'll explore together. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next tale that's bound to tug at your heartstrings and keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's continue this journey together, because every story has the power to inspire change. See you in the next one.